we are going to pick up our discussion of automating tasks for Active Directory. In this nugget, we're going to take a look at things like password resetting. And also, let's talk about account management, both in PowerShell and in the graphical user interface, when it comes to things like accounts that are disabled or locked out. This is another hands-on lab nugget, so if it's good time for you, launch the hands-on lab in order to follow along with me. When you enter the hands-on lab, you're going to notice you have a DC NUG 1, a DC NUG 2, and our client NUG 1. Let's go over to DC NUG 1 and let's begin with account lockout. You probably know that by default, in your Windows 2016 server environment, there is no lockout policy by default when it comes to users incorrectly guessing at passwords. This is not a good security practice by any means, so let's take care of that right now. Let's make sure that we can put in a nice account lockout policy, and then let's make sure we can automate the unlocking of accounts. So what we're going to do is go to the server manager, and we're going to control through group policy whether or not we have one of those account lockout policies. So let's go up to the tools menu, and from the tools menu, we're going to choose group policy, specifically group policy management. Inside of this tool, we're going to see that there is a domain policy, a default domain policy. Let's expand our forest. Let's expand our domains. Let's expand the nuggetlab.com domain, and there's our default domain policy. It gives us a warning that manipulating this could have a huge impact. We understand that. And now what we're going to do is right-click this default domain policy, and we'll choose to edit it. Where do we go in order to control account lockout? Well, if you go under Computer Configuration, Policies, Windows Settings, and then Security Settings, sure enough, there's Account Policies, and inside Account Policies, there's our Account Lockout Policy. Notice that by default, there is no number of invalid login attempts that would trigger the lockout behavior. So we're going to double click that setting and we're going to do the old bank ATM approach. If they attempt to guess passwords incorrectly 3 times, then we will lock out that account. This is great. Now watch what Microsoft does here. It's so clever. It says, all right, look, we're going to set a account lockout duration to 30 minutes. So if they guess 4 times wrong, they're locked out for 30 minutes, and we're going to set a 30-minute timer in between their attempts. So technically, the guy could, or girl, could guess at their password incorrectly, wait 30 minutes, and then that timer resets. They could try again, wait 30 minutes, then try again, wait 30 minutes, and try again. You get the idea, and the lockout won't be triggered. So some defaults get plugged in for the other values by Microsoft here. Now, when we want to refresh things, what do? We drop out to a command prompt because we made a policy manipulation there in group policy. We're going to say GP update, and we're going to update the policy that is in effect. Well, guess what? We're ready to test out this policy. So let's slide over to Client Nugget 1, and we're going to have some fun putting in incorrect passwords. So here we are at that testj user account on the client NUG 1 machine, and the password is the password off our clipboard, but I'll just do RT, and I'll try that password. And it says, nope, not correct. I'll try WR. Nope, not correct. I'll try QW. Nope, not correct. And I'll try FG. And we are now locked out. We're going to be locked out for that 30-minute duration that Microsoft suggested. Now up here on DC NUG 1, let's go to another tool. And that tool that we're going to go to is inside a server manager. We'll go to Active Directory users and computers. As you might guess, there is a way that we can go into the users container. There's our testj user. We could right click, we could go to properties, and from the account screen, we could unlock the account. Notice it says the account is currently locked out on this Active Directory domain controller, and we can unlock it with the graphical user interface. But that's no fun. We want to automate this process. So let's fire up a PowerShell session, because what we'll do is we'll unlock the account using PowerShell. Now we know the PowerShell commands are so intuitive that we're going to go directly to PowerShell this time, not the integrated scripting environment. We are going to get bold here and go right into PowerShell because, like I said, these commands, the verb noun structure, and the really great naming conventions that they use are going to make this easy for us to figure out. I also want to demonstrate to you the tab auto completion that we can do inside of PowerShell to help us. Now we want to unlock that T user account and inside of PowerShell. I wonder if the verb would be as straightforward as unlock. Let me try it. So I'm going to go into PowerShell here and I'm going to type UNL and I'll hit the tab key and it is going to scroll through the commandlets that begin with UNL, and it's going to bring us to the exact commandlet that we're looking for. How cool. The unlock AD account commandlet. We happen to know that we can look up AD accounts by identity from our earlier nugget on automation, and we'll bring up the identity parameter and we'll say it's the T user account. We hit carriage return. It's going to, in the background, load the necessary module for Active Directory manipulation. That's a one-time shot. And then it just returns us to the PowerShell prompt. This is a really good sign, isn't it? If we go back over to the Active Directory Users and Computers tool, we right-click this user, we go to Properties, and we go to the Account tab, we see that it is no longer locked. There's this unlock account, but there's no longer that verbiage about the account currently being locked because we know it isn't. Great stuff. Now we know it is super easy to go into the Active Directory Users and Computers, for instance, right-click an account and delete it. But that's not really what most administrators do. What they're going to do so typically is they're going to disable an account. So you have a user, you've got all their permissions, all their groups set up, all the things that employee needs. That employee gives you the middle finger, how rude, and they storm out one day and you say, well, we're going to get a replacement for that user. In fact, my cousin is standing in the wings ready to take that job. So you bring your cousin in and what you do is you rename this account and then you enable it. And now that person has all the group memberships they need, all the permission settings they need, and it saves you a tremendous amount of workload. This is one of the many reasons why some organizations never delete an Active Directory account. They just, like I said, disable it while they're looking for that replacement. Sure, it would be easy to right-click a user account and choose the disable account option, but again, we want to have some fun in PowerShell, so let's slide back to our PowerShell window here, and what we're going to do is, could it be this easy as disable AD account? And again, tab autocomplete, help me out there, and then I'll use my identity switch. You can use tab to autocomplete that, and I'll use the T user account, and we just disabled the T user account. If it's that easy to disable an account in PowerShell, would it be this easy to enable an AD account? You better believe it. It's enable-AD account. We'll use our identity parameter once again, and we'll pass it the T user, and we just enabled that account. You might want to make flashcards for these commandlets that we use so often together when we're talking about Active Directory. They would certainly be game for your certification exam, and flashcards are certainly going to help you to memorize these for your production environments. I find I can so quickly memorize them because, once again, they are named so appropriately by Microsoft. Now, the last one that we want to take a look at is password reset. This is going to be our most sophisticated use of PowerShell to date. We're going to do something that's really pretty simple, but we're going to nest one commandlet inside another. This is certainly the most sophisticated we've gotten. So we're going to set the AD, and you know what? I better use a hyphen. Yeah, sure. So here we go. Set AD account, and it's going to be password. And what we're going to do is we're going to use that identity switch for our T user, and we are interested in doing a password reset here. So we use the reset parameter. If we don't use the reset parameter, you're going to need to provide the old password and then the new password. But with the reset switch, we're saying, look, forget about the old password. Trample right over the top of it as we are a domain admin, and we want to reset it to the following password that we are going to provide. That password that we are going to provide is going to be with our new password parameter. And now we're going to do some parentheses because, as I said, in order to reset a password in PowerShell, we are going to need to do a nesting of one commandlet inside of this set AD account password commandlet, and that is the convert to commandlet. We want to convert to a secure string the plain text password we're about to provide. So I'm going to say as plain text as our parameter, and now we can give the new password like this is secure 123. Notice that's in quotes. And then finally, we can force this conversion, and that is our command. So let's review it. So we say set -ad account password. It's for T user. We want to do a password reset, and the new password is going to be given as plain text. This is secure 123, and we need that converted to a secure string. We hit the carriage return. If we did the syntax correct, we are returned to the prompt, and our user has a shiny new password. Let's see if all this worked by sliding out to that client NUG machine and trying that new password. This is secure 123, and we will log in, and the login's going to work great for the T user account. And that also just verified that we were able to disable and then enable that account properly, because if that hadn't worked, we wouldn't have been able to log in just now. So some fun here with account management and additional automations inside of PowerShell for Active Directory. What are we going to do next? Well, you and I are going to have probably the most fun we've had to date. We are going to run this cool little utility that's going to help us batch create 300 user accounts in our Active Directory. Holy user accounts, Batman. I hope you'll join me for that nugget. And I sure hope you found this nugget informative, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.